Criminal Justice, Mainstream and Cross Currents, Chapter 2, The Nature and Measurement of Crime. This is a narrated version of this PowerPoint presentation. The nature and measurement of crime. Logistical obstacles to effectively and efficiently measure crime. Number 1, problems of definition. The interpretation of behaviors that seem to be criminal offenses can be problematic. Number 2, problems of resources. Thousands of criminal justice jurisdictions report official criminal justice statistics. Number 3, problems of politics. Public officials do not want their communities perceived as high crime rate areas. Types of crimes. Crime can be divided into different types. Number 1, street crimes. This includes a variety of acts in both public and private spaces, including interpersonal violence and property crime. Number 2, corporate crime. Offenses committed by a corporation's officers who pursue illegal activity in the corporation's name. Number 3, white-collar crime. A nonviolent criminal offense committed during the course of business for financial gain. Offenses and offenders. Offenses against the person include homicide, sexual assault, robbery, and assault. Offenses against property include burglary, arson, embezzlement, larceny, theft, and auto theft. Offenses against the public order include drug use, disturbing the peace, drunkenness, and prostitution. Offenses against the person. The most serious penalties are reserved for these offenses. Motivations can include interpersonal disputes, instrumental violence, group violence, chronic violent offenders, political violence, rape and sexual assault, and robbery. Figure 2.1, available in your textbook, shows the serious offenses occur much less frequently than do property offenses, and the most serious of these offenses occur less often than the least serious, but they are the most concerned to law enforcement. This chart illustrates that violent offenses against the person statistically happen much less often than property. Robbery, rape, sexual assault are much lower than assault, which is lower than household burglary, which is lower than theft. Offenses against property. Burglary is different from larceny theft. Motor vehicle theft involves only automobiles and trucks. Arson involves fires that are purposely set. Offenses against public order. Some offenses involve no discernible victim. Victimless crimes involve consensual interactions or behaviors. Behaviors can include vagrancy, disorderly conduct, and liquor law violations. Measurements of crime. Not all offenses are reported to the police. Offenses that occur but are not reported are called the dark figure of crime. A crime may not be reported for several reasons. 1, an offense may be so subtle that it is never known to have happened. 2, an offense not may be perceived as such. And 3, the offender is a family member, friend, or acquaintance. 4, a victim believes the offense to be too trivial to report. 5, the victim fears reprisal. 6, the victim feels antipathy towards the police. Measurement of crime, the dark figure of crime. Again, as we mentioned earlier, this is a metaphor that describes offenses that go unreported to police and criminal justice officials and is never quantified. This illustration is an iceberg in the ocean, where the top part of the iceberg that we could see above the water would be crimes known to police, and the dark figure of crime is the part of the iceberg underneath the water that we cannot see. It is much larger, meaning we don't know the full extent of criminal activity because a lot of crimes are never reported to the police. The Uniform Crime Report, UCR. This is the most extensive and useful measure of crime available. More than 18,000 city, county, and state law enforcement agencies voluntarily report crime data to this program. The program collects data on about 98% of the U.S. population. Figure 2.3, taken from your textbook, is a schema of the regional crime rates for 2011. Violent and property crimes per 100,000 inhabitants. And this is based on the Uniform Crime Report, and it's broken down by regions of the country: West, Midwest, Northeast, and south. The Uniform Crime Report continued. Has the hierarchy rule. It is a multiple offense situation. The law enforcement agencies must decide which offense occurs highest in the violent crime property hierarchy and record only that offense. The Uniform Crime Report continued. There are sources of error in the UCR. They are unintentional ones and intentional ones. Changes to the Uniform Crime Report. In 2006, the FBI discontinued the crime index as it was found to poorly indicate the crime rate within jurisdictions, and the FBI still calculates crime rates for individual offenses, violent offenses, and property offenses. Figure 2.4, taken from your textbook, Federal Bureau of Investigation crime classification. On the left, we have violent crimes, which include murder and non-negligent manslaughter, forcible rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. Under the category of property crimes, we have burglary, larceny theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Uniform Crime Report continued. What is meant by the crime rate? It is the number of crime index offenses divided by the population of an area, usually given as a rate of crime per 100,000 people. Calculating the crime rate. This is a mathematical equation where the number of offenses is divided by the population times the number of people. For example, in the United States in 2011, there were 10 million estimated offenses divided by the total U.S. population times 100,000, which equaled to 3,295 offenses per 100,000 people in the population. Next is the National Incident-Based Reporting System. This is constructed to gather data on each criminal act, even if several acts are committed within the same complex behavior. Victimization surveys. This is a method for trying to get information on the level of unreported crime. Victimization surveys ask victims of crime about their experiences. Self-report studies. Individuals are asked to identify the types of offenses they have committed over the study period. Figure 2.7, taken out of your textbook, is the number of property and violent victimizations for 2002, 2010, and 2011. It illustrates the number of property and violent victimizations and how they increased from 2010 to 2011, but still did not reach the 2002 level. What part of the crime picture do reporting methods miss or obscure? Corporate crime, organized crime, drug sales, prostitution, and gambling. Measuring white-collar and corporate crime is difficult for several reasons. Number one, the Uniform Crime Report and the NIBRS primarily reflect street crimes. Number two, white-collar and corporate crime typically fall within federal jurisdiction. And number three, much of the investigation and regulation of corporate and white-collar crime is done by regulatory agencies and professional associations. Perception of crime. According to Joel Best, perceptions of violence are constructed not by official measures of crime, but by the media, which can distort and sensationalize particular incidents. Perception of crime continued. Only the direct consumers of crime statistics are affected by crime measuring limitations. Government funding agencies, law enforcement departments, and the media are concerned with understanding the crime picture. Where does fear of crime come from? Is it justified? Best three popular conceptions that compose the idea of random violence are patternlessness, pointlessness, and deterioration of society. Questions that we might ask from this chapter. What are the three major types of offenses? What is the dark figure of crime? And how do we calculate the crime rate? This is the end of Chapter 2 narrated PowerPoint presentation.